book I was assigned was Go Tell on the Mountain by James Baldwin. Baldwin was born in Harlem in 1924. He was a writer, playwright, and civil rights activist. He didn't know his real father, or he didn't know the name, at least, of his real father because his mother wouldn't tell him, and he had a strained relationship with his stepfather, and this can be shown through several of his books that he wrote. The highest education he had was high school, and that was shocking because he's a very talented writer for only getting a high school degree. He wrote his first play before he turned 12, so he's a prolific writer right off the bat. His teachers actually supported him, and one of his teachers brought him to professionally produce play, and later he became the magazine editor for the school. Unfortunately, though, he died in 1987 after writing a whole slew of works. And since he wrote a slew of works, he got a bunch of achievements and awards. Two of his most prestigious achievements are when he got an honorary doctorate from the University of British Columbia, and when he got a Légion d'honneur given by the French president at the time, and that's the highest you can get, highest honor you can get from him. So that says a lot about what Baldwin did as a writer. Additionally, he was placed on a stamp, and he was featured on the New York Times magazine. I think it's New York Times. But notable works, Go Tell on the Mountain was actually his first novel. Then he wrote Giovannis Room, which was a controversial book at the time because it dealt with homosexuality, and it was rejected by some publishers because it was dealing with something that was taboo. Another Country was also a book that was not smiled upon, but was frowned upon, because it had interracial relationships, and that was something you didn't deal with. Just Above My Head was one of his last novels that he wrote when he was right before he died. Some of his quotes are right here on the screen. You think that your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. I really like this quote because it shows that first world problems are so big until you open your eyes and the knowledge of the world comes to you through books, and it really can apply to a lot of things. The third quote and the quote in the black box over there, it really shows through his civil rights activism and his attitude towards you should do it if you want it to be done, or start it at least, like what he did with civil rights. Alright, so Go Tell on the Mountain is his first novel, like I said, and it's a semi-biography, and it parallels a lot with his life. It's set in the 30s in Harlem, and it takes place over one day and one night, which is shocking because I felt like it went a long time before that. But when I look back, it actually did take place from his birthday, from John's birthday, the main character, till he's so-called saved by the Lord, and his eyes are open to the Lord. The plot jumps back in time, and it provides context for characters that directly affect John, like Florence, his Aunt Florence, Gabriel, which is his stepfather, but he calls him his real father, because I don't think he really knows, and then Elizabeth, which is John's mother. This book was actually written in France, and James Baldwin actually later said that he went just to look back on his culture and see how it was, to get a new, fresh perspective on it. And then it's in the book, he references this, and he says the perspective, to say the very least, changes only with the journey. So it really puts that into perspective that he was trying to get a new perspective. So some of the parallels that I was talking about earlier, Baldwin and John were both expected to become preachers at a young age. Baldwin actually became a youth minister, and he was for about a couple of years, from 14 to 17, I'm pretty sure. And then both Baldwin and John struggled with their father figures and had their childhoods in Harlem. Alright, so themes. One of the first themes is violence because, well, not theme, but it's prevalent and it shows throughout the book. Roy gets stabbed, which is John's brother, and his brother gets stabbed because he was in a gang, in a group, and they got into a fight. Then John's mother and Roy get beaten by their stepfather, or by John's stepfather, and excuse me, and, like, he got beaten because he stood up for his mother. And then there were lynchings in Gabriel's Prayer, which is one of the flashback portions of the book. The sources of the violence is obviously racism, and especially in the lynchings, because Gabriel's Prayer went back in time where it was even more so, like, racist of a society, and then poverty, because John's father, or stepfather rather, was busting his tail to get money, and being a man of the Lord is not a profitable profession, really, so it put a lot of strain on him, and it, like, caused him to become hostile. Violence and discrimination also kind of pushed characters to move north, because most of them started out in the South, and discrimination because they had, like, they felt like they didn't have as many opportunities down in the South, and the North really didn't prove to be any different, unfortunately. Okay, so the theme, coming of age. John's expected to become a preacher, like I said, and his mother is, like, pretty much the only nice person in the house to him, and it kind of pushes him, and it pressures him to become a preacher, but it also steers him away at the same time. When John's eyes are open to the Lord, it seemed to, like, everybody that he's now an adult, and, like, he sees himself kind of as an adult now because he understands something so complex. And the coming of age story is not only for John, it's about his stepfather Gabriel as well, because Gabriel was troubled and he drunk and he slept around a lot, and he woke, like, his eyes were just all of a sudden opened, and within a year he got a house and a wife. So, and then he became a preacher. So that was an eye-opener for him and caused him to mature, too. Okay, this is an obvious theme, which is religion. The book is about John discovering the power of God, and at the end of the book, he's in religious ecstasy, and he's rolling around on the floor of the church, and he is going through all these visions, and he comes to realize that God's powerful, and it doesn't ever say that he becomes a minister, but it does show that he's saved, so to say, and that he believes. The church that he went to is called the Church of the Fire Baptized. It was a storefront church, which I didn't quite understand for a minute until it went into detail. It's actually basically a gas station that was just put a poster up and said, "This is a church." And it kind of shows the expectations of race, because if you were to expect a white people's church, you would not think a gas station that had a poster on it. You would think a lavish church with velvet seatings or whatever. And then, like, these people's church, the black people's church, not to be edgy here, but, like, they weren't expected to have nice things, especially during this time. Hymns are also every once in a while, like, interjected into it, and that just brings back more of the religious theme and tone. It also goes into how parts of religion are corrupt, and Gabriel had, when he first was new and saved, he went to a dinner with a whole bunch of other people called the 24 Elders that were preachers that had been preaching for a long time, and then he was at dinner with them, and Deborah, which is one of his first wives, which was his first wife, and then he went on to marry Elizabeth later, but anyways, he was talking about Deborah, and then one of the preachers poked a sexual jab at her, and she didn't hear it, but Gabriel certainly did, and he did not like it. And he saw how hypocritical the church is, or it can be. And then later on, it kind of portrays Gabriel as not really a saint either. They're supposed to be all holy and show everybody how to act, but Gabriel committed adultery. He had a kid with another woman while he was married to Deborah, and then he steals money from her to cover it up, and he beats his wife and children. And also, one of the other things is that all the characters have biblical names, such as Gabriel, John, Elizabeth, Deborah, Elisha. They all have biblical names, and it also references many Bible characters throughout the entire book, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So yeah, it's definitely religious heavy. Symbolism, the mountains, because it's in the name. Go Tell It Mountains, actually a hymn or a song that's in African American culture, and it's talking about go tell it to everybody that Jesus is the Savior and he was born. But mainly the mountains through this book were symbolizing heaven, because it takes a lot of work to get to heaven, and you have to work your way up, and mountains are no easy thing to climb. So John's stepfather said that he's going to learn that it ain't all singing and shouting. The way to holiness is a hard way. He got the steep side of the mountain to climb, which really just clicks in your head. It's like, yeah, this is definitely what it's talking about. Because at first you're like, he could be talking about that, and then later you're like, yeah, it definitely symbolizes it. Alright, a couple of fun facts to wrap up this awesome presentation. This is actually a picture of a rare or coveted novel cover. It's a hardback, and it can go from $50 to $125. I guess you Mr. Savage are quite into these type of things, so I put that in there for you. Baldwin was also a film critic and poet. He was a poet. I think that led him because he had a teacher that was a poet of the Harlem Renaissance, and he was, I guess, directly influenced by him. He also had a movie talking about the assassination of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers, because those were all his friends, and he saw them all get assassinated, and that really had an impact on him, because he was constantly disgusted by how racism was a thing, and he helped produce a movie, I'm Not Your Negro, and it's quite a great movie, and I got to see how he talked, and it fit right with the book, in my opinion. Also, one other thing I did not put on here was that Baldwin was actually, very supportive of gay rights, and that put him in a very small pot of people, and it really kind of struck me, that they didn't have many gay people back then, especially openly, and to be a civil rights activist as well, it really put him in a special position, and that's shown through his books. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and see you when we can, I guess. Thank you for listening.